Here's Chef Paterson, the host of RinkWide Vancouver. A busy boy this weekend, and our Canucks reporter. Survived the weekend in studio here, Jeff?
I did. Yeah. I mean, incredible people watching and a great vibe in the city. Like, it was fun.
Yeah, it was.
My wife got to the show on Friday. We talked about that on Friday.
Yeah.
I heard about it all weekend long, obviously, but with the early start and working out of the studio, they are going to have some cleanup. Sparkles are going to exist for days and weeks around the wall and probably around the entire city. But no, it was good for the city. It was a fun vibe. I went to Canucks practice on Saturday. Skated in the noon hour, finished up at about 1:30, and I came out and the sun was shining, and already like the buzz in downtown Vancouver, like it had just a different feel to it. And I thought, it's fun. I mean, fun was the atmosphere for the weekend. Not so much fun at Rogers Arena yesterday, but fun nevertheless in the city for the weekend.
Hey,
This is one of the reasons why you invest in a big public stadium, to have shows like this come through that would otherwise skip this city and put smiles on, 180,000 faces by the end of the weekend.
Good on the Canucks for getting the win on Friday, despite not getting to 20 shots. First game back from the road trip, so they bucked that trend. But it was a little concerning, maybe the manner in which they got the victory, not getting to 20 shots. And then it all manifested on Sunday, didn't it? I mean, they stayed in the game. It was close. They had a chance to get points out of that game, obviously. But, man, were the holes in the roster evident on Sunday, huh?
Yeah, just quickly on Friday, credit to them for gutting it out and coming back. Helped considerably by a wandering Elvis in the late stages of the second period. Still not sure what Elvis Merzlikins was doing, but hey, Canucks took advantage there. It's a 2-1 hockey game. If they go to the third, down a goal, maybe Columbus just parks the bus, and who knows how it goes. But at 2-2, you sort of felt like the Canucks would roar back, and they did. And they needed that because, they give it away against a Tampa team that was starting a road trip yesterday, an early start time for both clubs. But Canucks had shown out on their own road trip that early starts, they were able to grind out victories. They were the second best team on the ice, and yet saying that, they were 4 minutes away from getting something out of the hockey game. And alas, a too many men on the ice penalty in crunch time, and they couldn't kill it off. And look, how many times, I'm on with you guys twice a week. How many times have we absolutely marveled and raved about Quinn Hughes? And we can do it again on his performance yesterday. But there are other good players in the National Hockey League, and sometimes they rise up too. And Braden Point in on all 4 goals. Nikita Kucherov just doing his thing. He had missed the last couple of games. Didn't look like he had skipped a beat. And those guys took over. And I guess the unfortunate part for the Canucks was it was one of the quietest nights in a while for Elias Paterson and Brock Besser, to a lesser degree Jake DeBrusk, who's been scoring basically nightly. So the guy's allowed to have the occasional off game. But the Canucks top of the lineup didn't have it going. Bottom of the lineup is becoming a bit of a scoring concern, certainly. And then you take Quinn Hughes out of the lineup for 13 minutes. You're already without Miller, without Hronek, and now the captain goes down. You're asking a little too much to this hockey club, and ultimately they were plucky until the end, but I do think that the better team ended up winning the hockey game.
If Philip Hronek is still in the lineup when Hughes leaves, I think they probably look a little bit better, but man, were they just treading water when Hughes was gone. I mean, again, if Hronek's there, I think they look a little bit better than that, but, there was nothing there. There was just no help getting the puck going.
No, and for all this talk about slow starts and Friday night getting outshot 17-2 in the opening period and down 2-0, they get a 4-minute power play. Now Quinn Hughes suffers the brunt of the blow and leaves the ice. So, it's an opportunity, obviously, but again, no JT Miller, now no Quinn Hughes. It looked like you think maybe it would. And you're just reminded of how different this team looks when Quinn Hughes is there and doing all those Quinn Hughes things that make him and the hockey club so much better. And Eric Brandstrom stepped in and tried, but they couldn't gain the zone. They couldn't set up. They had one shot in 4 minutes of power play time. Like, opportunity there to get the jump on a Tampa team far from home. And unfortunately, they couldn't. I know they opened the scoring when Quinn got back, but this is kind of wild, guys, and they've got to sort out this home ice thing. Like, they just flat out, they have to. 4 wins in 13 games. They've opened the scoring 5 times on home ice, and they haven't won any of those games. It's like the first goal is supposed to mean something, and yet the only 2-0 lead that they've enjoyed on home ice all season was opening night against Calgary when they got it to 3-0, and even then it wasn't enough, and they ended up losing that hockey game. But 4 wins in 13 games when you got 4 more on the homestand and 7 of the next 9 at Rogers Arena. Like, if they don't get this thing sorted out, they're not going to play 800 hockey on the road all season. They're not. I looked it up this morning. Dallas was the best road team in the NHL last year. Didn't even play 700 hockey away from home. So there is going to be some regression on the road. And unless they get things moving in the right direction at home, this is a team that right now is in a logjam with a bunch of other teams right around the playoff bar. There's no guarantee that this is a playoff team. And I don't want to be alarmist, but 4 wins in 13 home games, that's not good enough.
No.
So 3-5-2 against playoff teams from last year, 3-5-2 against current playoff teams. Do you just think they are what they are, a team good enough to beat the weak sisters of the NHL, but not good enough to beat the best of the best?
Well, getting JT Miller back in the lineup whenever that happens is going to help. But to say that, hey, they get Thatcher Demko back, look out. Like, Kevin Lankinen's been in the discussion for the team MVP, and in that second period yesterday was heroic. Tampa had 19 shots in the second period. So I don't think you can look at Sunday's game and say, hey, if they had Thatcher Demko, probably a different outcome. I don't think you say that at all. But getting Demko back obviously is going to give them a 1-2 punch if he can get up to speed here. But I mentioned it a little earlier, and I do think now that there have to be some red flags around the hockey club, and I would think internally as well. Like, they don't have Austin Matthews. They don't have a guy that's going to score 60 goals. Even if Brock Besser gets back to 40 goal pace, that means half the games he's not scoring. We know that it's been a sluggish start for Elias Paterson, but he's kind of come out of the fog here. And Jake DeBrusk has been going great guns lately, but those guys aren't going to score every game. And so where is that next wave to support and pick up your top-end players on the nights when they're not going? And Nils Höglander up to 21 goal games now, matching his jersey number. Danton Heinen's at 15. And Dakota Joshua is in a separate silo, but it's been 12. And quite frankly, for me, with Dakota Joshua, and I tread lightly, but games 10, 11, and 12 have looked a lot like games 1, 2, and 3. Like, I'm not seeing a huge progression in his game, and maybe it takes 20 or 25. But I tried to talk to him on Saturday after practice, and he just didn't want to go there. He just didn't want to discuss kind of how slow it's been around him. And I said, do you give yourself a little bit of leeway? And he said, no, I'm in uniform. Like, I have to be better. But he just didn't want to discuss why it's been sort of the struggle that it's been for him. But, you think last year, like, Nils Höglander was a 24-goal scorer. Dakota Joshua was an 18-goal scorer. They were that next layer of scoring support for the Vancouver Canucks. And right now, if the top guys aren't going, it's going to be difficult. And certainly that was part of the case on Sunday afternoon.
Hughes leads all defensemen at 1.23 points per game. If he does that over the 3 games that he has in hand over Cale Makar, he leads all defensemen in scoring. It seems like the Norris Derby is back on. Hughes for Hart. Do you think that candidacy picks up here, particularly as we look at the rest of this Vancouver Canucks team and understand what he's got to carry on a night-to-night basis?
I certainly have time for the discussion, but I do think that it's maybe a bridge too far if this team ultimately falls completely out of the playoff picture. It's hard to go down that road. Now, again, they're 26 games in. They got 56 to go, and they should be getting reinforcements here. But, yeah, I mean, he has been that valuable to the Canucks. I think it would be hard to find 3 other guys that have meant as much to their hockey clubs in the early going as Quinn Hughes has. And one of the knocks on him was always, he doesn't score enough. Well, he showed last year that he can score. And with the goal yesterday, he's 2 off the NHL lead among defensemen. Makar has 9, and Hughes is now up to 7. There are only 3 defensemen in the NHL with more goals than Quinn Hughes. So he has absolutely bridged that gap. And, if that was a knock on him, you can't poke at that anymore because he has scored at this rate now that he's up to 7 goals. Like, he's on pace for 20 plus for the first time in his National Hockey League career. So, again, 13 minutes out of the game, comes back with the bubble, and you just saw an immediate uptick. You felt it in the building. The crowd responded when he got back there. That's what he means to the Vancouver Canucks, and then it didn't take long for him to sort of throw the blind backhander through traffic. And he's such an incredible player. If you watch the replay there, the way he cuts back and cuts into the slot, I even think he used the linesman who hadn't got out of the way out of the faceoff, like to create a little bit of separation just as another layer. Like, hey, guys out there on the ice, he's available to you as a screen and a decoy. Why not? And I wouldn't put it past Quinn Hughes. I know he wasn't available after the game to talk to the media because of getting some more treatment, but I would be curious, and I wouldn't put it past him if he used the linesman as part of his layered screen to fling that backhander in to open the scoring.
Yeah, and speaking of treatment,
I'm not sure I've ever seen a goal like that watching the NHL. Like, honestly, it was...
and he almost scored the same goal later in the game. He didn't have the linesman's help for that one. So he's getting the treatment on the face, obviously, after that game. But just overall, I mean, also just worried about burnout for this guy because he's so very clearly the maestro there. And the day off today obviously helps, but I think we're going to see a lot of those maintenance days. And not because he's necessarily injured per se, but I feel like we're in March territory already when it comes to wear and tear on Quinn Hughes.
Yeah, so because he missed 13 minutes of game action, his overall ice time wasn't huge, obviously, in the game in Ottawa where he got punted after 5 minutes. I mean, that does remove some of the wear and tear, but you're right. I mean, they forced
They're just
him off
hard
the ice.
minutes, though.
Talkett said on whenever they got back off the road, when Thursday, they practiced, and Talkett said, I had to tell him to go take a seat. And I think that's going to be probably more of the norm here as they play every other day between now and Christmas. Then there'll be a brief break. But, you know, when you think of what's ahead, like not just the stretch drive, Quinn Hughes is going to play a ton of the Four Nations faceoff, right? Like, there's no doubt that he is going to be the main guy on defense on a best-on-best tournament. Now, it's 3 games ultimately, so it's not like it's, you know, a 2-week tournament. But still, like, that's added mileage at the highest level. So he's aware of that, and I'm sure he will do what he has to do. But yeah, if it requires him taking a little less practice time, then I think that's the prudent play for both him and the hockey club here. But I did think it was interesting that he wanted to practice, and Talkett said, nope, you're not joining us today in the best interests of the club. You're going to sit this one out.
At the bottom, is Vinny Desharnais a problem right now?
Yeah, nice guy. Had a good laugh with him on Saturday about the breakaway against Columbus and what that might have been, but he's not there to score goals. He is supposed to prevent them. He and Brandstrom got into some trouble on the opening goal against the Blue Jackets, and then yesterday he's on the ice for the first Tampa goal, and then he's in the penalty box moments after, and they score on that power play. So, yeah, I suppose there's going to be a decision here sooner rather than later. Derek Forbort has shed the non-contact jersey. I was curious if they would practice today. Would we see Forbort perhaps and Brandstrom as a third pair? We saw that once in San Jose, and then Forbort got hurt the practice after that and hasn't been seen on the ice in game action since. So not that Derek Forbort is the answer, but if Vinny Desharnais is being used sort of in a strictly defensive posture and some penalty kill, Derek Forbort has been around the block a few times. I think that, you know, he can pick up the slack there. Whatever the case, when they signed Vincent Desharnais, I think they saw a Tyler Myers clone. I think they saw what this coaching staff did with Tyler Myers to have him, the season that he had a year ago, and they thought they could do the same thing. So this is turning out to be more of a project. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And yeah, you just wonder, especially with Philip Hronek out, like, can you continue to run Vinny Desharnais out there as one of your 6 defenders? I don't think Mark Friedman's going to get an opportunity with Forbort being this close to returning, but they brought Cole McWard up last week for a practice at the very least. Like, at some point, is it worth exploring what you've got down on the farm on the right side? But there is no question, as we sit here 26 games into the season, I don't think that you can look at Vincent Desharnais and think that this is an everyday National Hockey Leaguer on a really robust defensive team.
We'll talk to you Friday in advance of the Bruins game, but the week ahead here, Jeff, was St. Louis and the defending Cup champions Florida, who, in fairness, the Canucks have already beat this year on Tuesday and Thursday.
Blues are just the definition of an average NHL team. In fact, they are NHL 500 at 13-13 and 2, coming off a loss in Edmonton. But that was the first regulation loss under Jim Montgomery, so they'd responded to the coaching change. But they don't have a double-digit goal score. I think they've got 3 guys on 9 goals, so they don't score an awful lot. And it kind of feels like, yes, maybe this is the softer entry point for Thatcher Demko to return to the net for the first time after backing up twice here. So I'm expecting that Demko's going to get the start, but full team day off on Monday, so we'll have to wait for the morning skate. But that's a gettable game, and much like Columbus, but it's this one step forward, one step back for the Vancouver Canucks, particularly on home ice. They haven't strung consecutive home ice wins together, not just this season, but even in the playoffs. They never strung consecutive home ice wins together. It's been a while since the paying customer has seen the Canucks back up a win with another one, and that's something that has to change here. So you can't start a streak without the first one. See if they can get it against St. Louis, because then, as you said, the defending champs come to town. This time they're going to have Matthew Tkachuk and Alexander Barkov and, West Van Sam Reinhart, who is right back doing what he did last year, leading the NHL. He's got 19 goals already. Panthers are one of the highest scoring teams in the National Hockey League. So that's going to be a challenge. And then Boston, you never know what you're getting from the Bruins on a night-to-night basis. And then the homestand finishes up next week against Colorado. So, they've already kind of put themselves in this position that if they don't beat the Blues, they're going to be chasing the rest of the homestand, and that's exactly what happened on the last 6-game homestand where they were 2-3 and facing the Rangers, end up losing that one. They go 2-4. That was a disappointing homestand. Again, with 4 wins in 13 games, they have to find and hit the turbo button here at Rogers Arena. The home fans, the paying customers, they deserve it. But if this team is going to get where it wants to go, they do have to start putting better performances on the ice at home.
We're saying, if you're going to, have the antidote for that last homestand and go 4-2 on this homestand, now you put yourself in the position to go 3-1 the rest of the way, and there's a big win somewhere in that group, either against the Florida Panthers or the Colorado Avalanche if you plan on going 3-1. So they're going to have to pull it out.
Yeah, and 7 of the next 9 at home, and you look we talk about St. Louis, Boston, again, just where the Bruins are, I think that's a gettable game. You've got Ottawa before Christmas, Seattle right after Christmas, San Jose's in there as well. There are opportunities, but again, if you're going to do some of the things that the Canucks have done on home ice and so many guys that haven't scored on home. I was looking at this morning, too, guys. Daniel Sprong opened the scoring this season. Remember, he scored the first goal of the year against Calgary? He's tied with Jake DeBrusk and Nils Höglander in goals scored at Rogers Arena, and still has more than Danton Heinen and Dakota Joshua, and he's got 1 less than Connor Garland at home. So, yes, we withered Daniel Sprong, who no longer lives here, but some guys have to find a way to push past Daniel Sprong on the home ice statistics. Otherwise, we're going to be talking about this for a while.
He will be a trivia question if they go on to do great things.
Yes,
who
perhaps.
Scored the first goal of the
total magic.
Said a guy who lasted 9 games, Daniel Sprong. Marvelous stuff, Jeff. Have a great week on RinkWide, and we'll catch up Friday.
Sounds good, guys. Thanks.